Why are so many smart, high functioning women still guessing when it comes to their hormones, even with more natural solutions than ever? I'm Rosemarie. Welcome to Second Opinion. This is the show where we talk about real life in midlife, not health as a checklist, but how hormones, food, stress, work, and identity, every single bit of it, intersect inside the body and the life you're living now. As a healthcare pro and journalist, here's what experience makes clear and what has been personally revealed to me. Health isn't always about more options. It's also about better interpretation. Because right now, especially in the area of women's health, we are seeing an explosion of solutions. We are seeing supplements, protocols, trends, you name it. It has shown up somewhere on social media. But the real question is this: what is actually holding up biologically, clinically, and over time? Today's conversation is a little bit different. I'm joined by the co-founders of Two Moons, a company focused on supporting women's hormonal health through a more natural, cycle-based approach. Terry Chang, attorney, operator, and founder, who came to this work through her own experience navigating her hormonal health. And Dr. Ulrich Kausner, neurologist and researcher with training across Europe and the US, who brings an integrative lens into this clinical care space. This conversation is not just about a product. It is about how we think about hormone health in a category that is still not fully defined at the moment, but it is definitely evolving. Ladies, thank you both for being here today and joining me in this conversation.
Thanks so much for having us, Rosemarie.
Thank you very much. It's very exciting.
If each of you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your background for anybody who's not familiar with your work and how you both actually made it into this space.
Well, a little bit about me. This is Terry. I practiced law for 18 years, first in corporate and then in entertainment before founding this company. I like to say that Ulrika and I became founders by accident. So we weren't chasing the idea of a business. Rather, to start at the beginning, you have to go back to November 2023 when I had a clothing swap in my apartment. It's a ritual that my women friends and I like to have. I think of it as like a sustainable fashion potluck. And during this gathering, I opened up a bit about my struggles with premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is, hormone related. And by sharing this personal experience, I was able to hear from Uli about an integrative practice that she herself had done called seed cycling with raw seeds. And she had done this for years, and she found it to be very balancing for her cycle. And so I said, that sounds wonderful, but couldn't we make it simpler for women, for modern women, to fit into their daily routines? And initially we thought maybe we'd make snack bars out of the seeds because, we'd have one bar for the follicular phase, one bar for the luteal phase. But then we did a market survey during the holiday season that year, and apparently no women want to eat more sugar. So the more popular option that our friends and our personal friends and our friends of our sisters who we polled, they expressed a strong preference for capsules. So then based on that feedback, we landed on a capsule system, 2 phases, pre-dosed, just removing that kind of friction and improving adherence to the protocol for women. And that's sort of how we became accidental founders.
I love that. I love how no matter what we're going through as women, no matter what your background, hormones always brings us back together. It's the commonality.
This is Uli. This is a very interesting feeling. You say exactly the right thing. And hormones. I remember one of my professors from medical school, and my sister quoted him yesterday actually and said, do you remember him? He always said, hormones are directing everything. It's not the brain, it's not the heart, it's not the skin, it's not all the other cells. It's really the hormones. And my sister quoted it from back then, so I must have shared it with her. So it's really funny that you say this because I just heard it last night. And yeah, women's health is a very interesting point and interesting aspect, because when we think about women's health, we are always so fixated on like OBGYN and the regular what a OBGYN does in terms of like fertility, childbirth, prescribing maybe a birth control, and then the gynecological observation of the female organs. But the interesting aspect is we have estrogen receptors throughout our entire body. There are different estrogen receptors and different subtypes now described, and we don't have them just in our ovaries. We have them in our uterus, in our brain, in our joints, in our bones, in our hearts. And it's very interesting to think about women's health probably from the lens and perspective from every other medical field as well, and combine it or integrate it. And so my dad is actually an OB, and we have a lot of integrative health interests in my family. So like teas or talking about natural things, it's just a very normal thing, not from like a woo-woo side, but like, oh, this one herb is known to do that. Or if you use this one herb for joint pain, it's really good. And yeah, so I grew up with that naturally, and I try to include this a little bit more into my neurological practice as well. I see mostly autoimmune inflammatory patients. And is another exciting point, yesterday, a friend actually messaged me. It's the big meeting of the American Academy of Neurology right now. And they had, during the plenary session, they had the first big discussion on women's health action, how that might impact menopause. So I think this is super exciting to hear how much that evolves.
No, that's so exciting. And for people listening, because I did an interview a couple months ago with an OBGYN, and she brought up something interesting, and you touched upon it. And she was sharing like how in medical school, they're only given a small piece about hormones, menopause, or these transitional cycles that phases women go through. Their baby basically like focuses delivering babies, right? And there's so much now, people are turning to them for all this hormone related information, which I thought that was really pretty transparent of her to share that she's like, we weren't even really trained on this. Like, we have to seek all this information on our own. So it's putting a lot of burdens even on OBGYNs. And what I also like that you said is that, and it brings up and you talked about how neurology is integrating this, is that we do have these receptors all over our body, but we're just so focused on the female part of it that your heart, especially in cardiac surgery, or, like neurology, where these receptors are everywhere, and why all these symptoms are popping up that women had. And all of a sudden they're having all these symptoms that they seem like they're out of nowhere, but they are related.
Good points. No, thank you for reiterating that.
You naturally brought it up, so it's pretty awesome how that happens. Where do you think, even with all of this information that we have coming at us, where are we missing the mark when it comes to hormone health, especially natural solutions?
In terms of natural approaches to,
Yeah.
very good question. I think we live in a very medication-focused society in terms of medicine, and our medical system is very focused on treatment once there are symptoms. We are actually very focused on the sick person and not so much on prevention and prophylaxis. And our entire system is really built on this: we give something to a person once there is something. Moreover, we do not have this kind of more Eastern approach where we integrate naturally a little bit more of herbal aspects, or maybe other things such as acupuncture or acupressure or breathing techniques. And I think these are a little bit of different mindsets that we adhere to. And this is absolutely the training I got. And I was so fixated on absolutely, we give big medicine and this is how we treat, and everything else is like hocus pocus.
Yeah.
And this is very interesting to become more open-minded. And I mean, the US is great in the sense of we have these developments, I think, at least over the last 100 of years, in terms of like being interested in new diets or being interested in new like philosophical or spiritual movements. So I think the US is very open-minded to that, while Europe, on the other hand, is very open to more herbs and integrative aspects. If you think of Kneipp, this is the one who talked about this cold water, or if you think about globally, who like homeopathic medicine, where it's essentially thinking about like very minuscule ways of using medicine in like small doses to just induce the body that it starts self-healing. And not all these things have evidence-based results. So this is the main point. So we in medicine go by things that really have results. And everything else is not considered good. But maybe there's a certain ancient wisdom or there's certain knowledge that we just have not put through a study, or where there's no interest or no money to put it through a study, because it's not something that is, maybe supported from some entity, because studies are expensive. And traded wisdom is something we used for centuries. And have we all looked into like dandelion broth, or have we all looked into...
Yeah.
We might have so many more things out there that can help and that we are not aware of yet. But I think we see more and more of these like natural aspects. In Europe, we have a couple studies because we have pharmaceutical, quote unquote, pharmaceutical companies who are specializing only on natural medications. For example, quoting something, I'm thinking of one company, actually, my dad prescribed a lot of things from there. For example, chasteberry, something that we also have in our product, is something that is used widely for a long, long time. And they have done studies with that, but they have like all natural products. And so this is a very important aspect. And the other thing is that modern medicine has evolved of many of these plants. And so we shouldn't be arrogant and, we have all the wisdom with
Yeah.
our more modern Western medicine, because we don't. And if we just think about digitalis, I mean, this is a potent cardiac medication, comes from a plant originally, but and so many other medications are derived from plants. So I think the sweet spot and the best solution is probably a combination. We should more focus on prevention and prophylaxis. We should be more open-minded to herbs and plants because they're powerful, and we do need more studies. And certainly we do need the traditional medicine as we think about traditional medicine, meaning medications, because this is only how we can help certain people.
I think back even from the 90s, the early 2000s now, because we're all of a certain age, right? So I just remember being in the 90s and having issues and going to my doctor and basically just sitting across from them and just not really getting much. I was only in my 20s. I'm like, well, how are we supposed to get evidence if we're not doing anything? And that's why when we're going to talk about seed cycling now, which is why it caught my attention, is because for dealing with so many women, younger women with endometriosis and then perimenopause and menopause, even though I think we've made a lot of progress, we still have more of these standard pathways. So with that, what is seed cycling and how it fits in this big picture of, like you said, plant medicine, seed medicine, and how it actually plays a part in a women's cycle?
So seed cycling is the use of two different seeds, pumpkin seeds and flax seeds during the first half of the cycle, and sesame and sunflower seeds during the second half. The female cycle, as we all know, but surprisingly, I don't think we all have so much awareness of our cycle or know exactly what it is, because it's very interesting. It starts out with the FSH, so a hormone that is actually produced by our brain that induces the stimulation of follicle growth in the ovaries. That's early on during the cycle. The cycle starts with period day 1. And then during these next 2 weeks, the estrogen increases, progesterone stays low. And then around day 14, not everybody has a perfect 28-day cycle, and there's a variety to it, and it's absolutely healthy and normal. And around day 14, LH, luteinizing hormone, actually triggers the release of the egg. FSH alongside with it increases. And this is then a day later, the estrogen drops, and then progesterone starts increasing for the second half. And so first half, high estrogen, second half, high progesterone. And the combination of seeds supports this estrogen increase during the first half. And the thought is that flax seeds are a little bit of supporting this in the sense of being phytoestrogenic, containing so-called lignans. But then there are also like oils in there, a lot of electrolytes, magnesium, zinc, etc., that supports that. And during the second half, sesame also contains some lignans that supports more this progesterone increase. Again, the combination with pumpkin seed has magnesium, zinc, all of those contain selenium, other electrolytes as well, which can support the progesterone production. So they're not directly working the thought is that they modulate estrogen receptors during the first part, also help with clearing estrogen. And this overall helps balance these hormones in both phases. And then around age 28, once there is no fertilized egg, the progesterone dips again, and then the whole cycle starts again.
Oh, wow. So with that, so you have these seeds in your supplement. I noticed that there's like two different supplements that you take at different cycles. What is the difference between using seed cycling as a supplement and versus using it as food? How do they work? How is it the same and how is it different?
It's incredibly much more convenient to use our supplement. It's pre-dosed. I mean, this was the reason why we had the genesis of this company in the first place, because I'm quite lazy in the kitchen and just mixing
And
and
you're
measuring.
busy. And you're busy.
And at the time that this company was formed, I was traveling maybe about quarter of the month to a third of a month. And it's just very impractical. In the beginning, I tried to implement Uli's advice by bringing bags of seeds with me to the airport and my carry-on. And it's just messy and it's hard to sustain. And I think for women, if a protocol becomes too impractical to sustain, they'll just drop it, right? And so uh, ours, we have little day markings on the side of the label, so you can mark which day you're on as you're consuming the capsules. And so it's a very easy way to remember, oh, I'm in day 1 through 14. I'm in the first half of my cycle, or I'm in day 15 through 28, the second half. I'm going to feel this way during these different halves. I know what sort of symptoms to anticipate in myself. So in a way, as you're taking the supplement, you are more aware of where you sit in the cycle, and you can sort of announce it to the people around you. If it's helpful to them as well, friends and family, some warnings sometimes. But basically, we wanted to make something that was an elegant solution that could be incorporated into your daily rituals, while you're taking your other vitamins in the morning or you're having your morning coffee, and it becomes very quick and easy. And so, yeah, it was the genesis of our brand. And we've found that women have reported in their customer reviews to us that, ones who had tried seed cycling with raw seeds but found it hard to sustain because they had to think about how to put it into smoothies or salads or incorporate it into their meals. This way, it wasn't dependent on what they were eating that day. They could just easily remember. And especially for those who are frequent travelers, they think it's a joy.
Yeah. And I was thinking too, the dosing, you know exactly what's going into your diet as opposed to just winging it sometimes.
And it's also less perishable. The shelf life is between 2 to 3 years for our product, whereas with raw seeds, like once you grind them, its perishability is going to be pretty quick.
What's a good starting point for them? Is this talking about hormone metabolism or, say, production? Where does this fall in the cycle in case women are curious of like how these actually work?
So it is supporting the metabolism. That's the idea behind these lignans. And probably also metabolism in the sense of clearance. It's an interesting thing, and I mentioned this over the last few months a few times. It's very exciting that we do know now that there's this estrobolome, which is the microbiome that is specifically responsible for estrogen, somewhat estrogen clearance. I think also somewhat estrogen, not production, but estrogen maintenance. And then the other part is, you're absolutely right. So it's metabolism, and the other one is production, in the sense of, we do know that magnesium can support progesterone production. I mean, it's very interesting. This corpus luteum is producing the progesterone for 2 weeks. So it has a big job for 2 weeks, and it's this only little organ that does it. And apparently there are certain things that can support it, such as, this zinc and magnesium containing foods.
Wow. So with that, these supplements, the two moons, does that also support gut health in a way? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to like link the two. Are they connected at all? Yes.
Very good question. Another favorite topic, and such an important topic. Yes, because the clearance is very important. And then our microbiome is probably doing a lot more things than just the digestion. And I mean, what is digestion? It is a little factory that we have, essentially. And again, the clearance is important, but also which metabolites we actually get into our gut and into our body. Is there inflammation? Is it otherwise healthy? Can everything be absorbed? And in terms of our product, is helping with, the seeds themselves have fiber. We added a little bit of psyllium, which is a very classic fiber during the second half, where women tend to have a little bit more constipation, because this is what progesterone does. It slows down the gut motility. And then another thing we also added is chasteberry that can lower inflammation. And also something that we see in the gut, this is where women actually can have this more bloating and constipation symptoms, or then around their period, maybe more loose stools. And that works also on the pituitary, so the HPO axis, the hypothalamus pituitary ovary axis. This is where the chasteberry works, and this is also what we added. So our product has like a few little like routes where it could support.
So there's a lot of nuances in that. And ladies, please step in. Like, I'm trying to figure out too, like, it sounds like this product is, for women's health overall, whether you're in your 20s all the way to your 50s, like, it doesn't really feel like there's a timeline. It sounds like it's supportive throughout.
You're exactly right. We say it's from first bleed to last. So whether you're in puberty, whether you're in perimenopause, it could be mothers and daughters who are both taking it. Um, so, and we think it is really for all women, not just those with extreme issues, but everyone could have a little bit more balancing.
Clearly, it's targeting hormones, but it just sounds like from gut health to overall health, it's like connecting the dots there. Okay, so from first bleed to interesting. So, what about women who, in case women are listening and they're like, well, I don't have a uterus. I still have my ovaries, but I don't have a uterus. So it sounds like it's for everyone, but I don't want to make that general assumption. Is there any contraindications?
Good question. So first to go maybe through the life cycles of a woman, or the hormonal cycles, it definitely can help young girls regulating their periods and helping them with their cramps and various symptoms they might have with PMS, etc. I spoke to a gynecologist who was running one of the studies, particularly on the chasteberry, because that helps very nicely with PMS, also can help with perimenopause. But they use it very frequently for young girls in Europe. And we see it here now as well, more and more. So we deliberately just put it into the second half of the capsule, that the body doesn't get used to it, and only at a small dose, which is really published in publication. So this is where it's really good for teenagers. And then for women in their 20s, if they're into natural things, they do know then their cycle. They could know where they are. They would know when to prevent pregnancy or when aim for pregnancy. Can have with PMS symptoms later as we go in the 30s, where the progesterone can actually get weaker as we start turning 35 and older. So it might help a little bit there. It can help throughout perimenopause. It gets a little bit more tricky once the cycles get really very spaced out. We have had cases where cycles have been 100 days, and it really normalized them or shortened them in like people in their teens or in their 20s, 30s. But if someone is like really, really late in their cycle years, and whom the cycle is coming every several months, let's say, because there is no ovulation, and they might not really have the full benefit of it anymore, but they might need a little bit of maybe hormone support or something in addition. But if someone is in the first several years of perimenopause, absolutely can help. There are some ideas that it actually might help during menopause. There's no cycle to hold on to, but some people say just cycle with the moon, because there's a little bit of a cyclical thing to the women body anyway. Adrenal glands continue reportedly to produce a little bit of estrogen throughout lifetime, as does our fat tissue. We have a little bit of estrogen always. We don't lose it fully. And so this might maybe support it a little bit. And then in terms of who should not take it, people who are pregnant, women who are pregnant, people who are breastfeeding. And then as we have the chasteberry in there, we have a very careful assessment of this, because we talked to a lot of people and read a lot of studies. It should not be combined with medications that increase dopamine or have an impact on dopamine pathways. So if it's certain mood medication, recommend discussing it with PCP or psychiatrist. And other very interesting concepts are with PCOS or endometriosis. That is a really long conversation as well, because there are a few studies that suggest that seed cycling, there's a review from last year where they looked at 635 women out of 10 publications, that it might help with PCOS. That's the seed cycling itself. As we have the chasteberry in there, it might help some women. It might not be the perfect thing for everybody, because the PCOS has like various levels of LH and FSH. But some women have tried it out, also our capsules, and have reported great results, and similar with endometriosis. we need a little bit more, the jury's a little bit out in terms of, is chasteberry, is seed cycling helping with endometriosis, or is it an individual thing, an individual game, which it will be all medicine. I mean, we always give the same aspirin for everybody. But might someone actually need a little bit less than the 81 milligrams or the 325 or a little bit more? So even with this, we all need a little bit more precision and personalization. But some individual might have benefits, others might not. But we are cautioned a little bit about the PCOS and endometriosis.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the really interesting things that we've seen from the customer reviews of women with PCOS is that they've really noticed a change in their skin. So some women who suffer from hormonal acne, we've seen a few consistent reviews that it's really cleared it up for them noticeably. And if they skip a few days, then it comes back. So they credit our supplement with that. And this has been true for both adult women with PCOS, and we've seen some teenagers have their acne cleared as well. We've been told by their mothers. This is not what we designed the product for. We designed the product to alleviate PMS, PMDD, and early perimenopause symptoms. But it's always nice to have a surprise benefit that science is unexpected.
Yeah, and nice, and overall nice. It's not even a side effect, but it's a positive outcome. It's like an overall healthy lifestyle. It's like when you focus on one thing, you're going to affect the entire body. By if you're focusing on your gut, if you're going to have a better heart or you're going to have a better brain. So thank you for bringing that up because I know a lot of women. It's so interesting. I'll share this again. I sometimes share a lot of, it's like we all kind of have the same things. I never had a blemish when I was young, but when I hit 30, I don't know if it was stress or what it was. I had this adult onset situation with acne. I'm like, what? Like, so when everybody was getting blemishes at 12 and 13 when it was socially acceptable, I never had that. But then when you're older and you're like out in the world and you're giving lectures or you're giving talks, all of a sudden you're having acne. And so many women I know have dealt with that, professional women. Is it stress? Is it a combination of everything? But these are working women that had this acne situation. So that's really helpful to know that there are some of your customers, patients saying positive, because there's a lot of frustrated women when it comes to their skin. What about if you're on birth control or hormone replacement therapy?
Good question. We do not recommend it in combination with birth control because then you do not have a regular cycle. It's an artificial continuous hormonal support, which essentially suppresses this regular release of the induction hormones coming from the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. So as there is no cycle, you do not have to seed cycle. In terms of HRT, we also say probably not, as you get an artificial supply. Maybe as women have somewhat of a cycle, I was actually thinking about this, maybe they get progesterone during the second half, maybe estrogen more during the first half, maybe they could be combined. And I'm not worried about the seeds. The chasteberry is the more interesting part. But again, it's a very nice helping herb actually for women in perimenopause. But if later perimenopause years or menopause years, it's probably then I would say just the HRT.
Okay, so sounds like for women who definitely want to go to like the more natural approach that are not interested in HRT or birth control, whatnot. So this is like a much more cycling. Okay, that's really helpful because I did have a question: is it adjunct, alternative, or entry point?
But also, we should clarify that there's some forms of birth control that it can be used with, right? It depends on, we're just saying not hormonal birth control, but
Okay,
say somebody has a copper or a gold IUD, right? It's okay to use with our product.
Right. Like a
perfect.
pure mechanic one without hormones.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. One more thing about data. There seems to be, because even when I research myself, it gets a little frustrating. You go to PubMed, the NIH, and whatnot. What do you think? Sometimes there's this tension. So you've got anecdotal experience versus gold standard data. Do you want to speak a bit about that? I know we've covered it a little bit, but just some of that tension that can some be, because some doctors are still not open to this at all, which I find, yeah, without being editorialized, but Just coming from this background, what are your thoughts on this? I'm trying to stay in the middle lane, but I think it's a
Absolutely.
conversation that so many women get frustrated because I feel like there's options, but nobody wants to send them down, depending on the practitioner, wants to send them down that path, you know?
It's such a great question, and there's so many thoughts in so many different directions. And I think it's beautiful as you bring up these questions. I think the conversations gets wide and wide and more into the world. And it's, I think, in a lot of ways, it's probably education and knowledge. And as we share it more and more, it probably gets more accepted, and we will start getting more open-minded. We being the healthcare providers. I mean, me pointing at me.
Yeah. But you're also a consumer of medicine too. We all need it, right? A lot of my friends in healthcare, they're all thinking outside the box. I think, yeah, these conversations, it's what they're worth having. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, there's so many. If I may just for 1 second, there's so many thoughts because I treat autoimmune conditions. So MS is my main disease, and I
Okay.
come with like really heavy autoimmune medications. And essentially, I treat a disease where we do not know fully where it's coming from. It's probably a combination of different aspects. And I always have this question from patients: How about nutrition? How about other aspects? And I'm very open minded. We don't have a magic formula in terms of that nutrition. Terry knows this. I myself don't eat a lot of things, or I eat very special things, and very annoyingly.
It's okay.
Why not? What do we know about autoimmune conditions? And I just think about my like little practice that I always talk to patients about. But it is so interesting how we need to get more open-minded about it. And as you said, we don't have the education during medical school, but I think it's just this lack of knowledge on the one hand side, and then probably also this we should erase a little bit this, as I mentioned earlier, ignorance or arrogance in terms of us, we have figured it out with a chemical solution. Why can't a plant product or something more natural also have an impact? And hey, maybe the combination is a golden route. And I'm just thinking about a publication I read in a German newspaper on a woman who is about 50, was very active, but had terrible joint pains and went from one orthopedic to the next until she found someone who is actually a perimenopause menopause specialist and started her on HRT, and the joint pains got so much better. And then she went back to the first orthopedic who said, thank you for sharing this. I wasn't aware of this. And I thought this is a very interesting aspect that we in standard medicine need to learn more and, educate ourselves and get educated.
No, and thank you for saying that because I have friends who are very in tune with their body. They're very healthy women. I'm going back to say 30s. I was living in California at the time. Very, everything centered around health and wellness in California, which is I loved living out there. But I had friends that were literally having issues with their cycle, perimenopause, that were getting sent to rheumatologists and getting worked up for lupus and things like that when they were just in perimenopause. The math wasn't mathing. And had they known that for years, they could have went down another. So I'm glad you're open to this conversation because I feel like this is all this part of this supplement conversation and why it's so important. And maybe with that, you can talk a little bit about that. Like in a space where you're a medical doctor and you're an attorney, how did it feel going down this road in a place because both very regulated? We're in professions where we take board exams and we take tests. And now you're venturing down this supplement world that has little or no regulation.
Exactly. So the supplement industry, we know it's very underregulated. And so a healthy amount of skepticism is certainly justified.
Hmm.
Most products actually don't even go through any pre-market validation, and their claims often exceed the evidence, right? So our decision was we wanted to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We engaged in a third-party IRB approved clinical study because we wanted independent validation that was non-negotiable, given, Ulrika's medical background, a lawyer as well. Our clinical study showed improvements across pain, mood, bloating, sleep, skin. The participants reported 74% fewer period-related sick days were taken during the 2 months that they were on our product. There were 72% of the participants reported less premenstrual and menstrual pain, and 87% said they wanted to continue using our product after the 2 cycles they went through. So for us, we we're very open to ancient wisdom. We think there's a reason why ancient wisdom is considered wisdom, right? But we also wanted to subject it to the tools of modern science where we can measure and gather data and have evidence for our claims. That was very important for us to build trust with our consumers, with our potential investors. We're also very curious. We wanted to really understand the research on seed cycling still emerging, right? We're optimistic about it based on the anecdotal evidence that we've seen from our customers, but we wanted to understand it more. And so while we didn't invent the integrative method of seed cycling, we've made it usable, we've made it more convenient with a delivery mechanism, and we've measured, at least in this cohort of 40 women who aged 18 through 45 who took our product for 2 months, that it was clear that they felt these improvements. But we, as a brand, we think it's really important to be precise about what we know and what we don't know. So that's where we are. But we are very hopeful as the knowledge continues to advance and more trials are run on this area.
What was this moment? Take me to that point where you made that decision and you decided to go for it, and what it was like getting it into the entrepreneurial space. If you wouldn't mind sharing, that would be wonderful.
Well, originally, Uli and I met even years and years before that. So we've known each other 18 years. So we met we met in a piano class. So that's not our profession. It's something we enjoy as a hobby, and we both played since we were 4 years old. But it was a evening division class at Juilliard, and so we're both people who've practiced things and really like to refine things, and might even obsessively, work on something until
Perfection.
perfection. Exactly, and there's discipline there, right? And so I think when this idea came up, we can be both very, very persistent people. And so we were like a dog with a bone. We're like, how can we have this mission? We vow to make this more convenient for women. We can make a big difference in the world. And then we just hung on to it and became quite obsessed with the idea of creating a product that could be both beautiful, modern, and have a sense of purpose. And we became very passionate and driven to accomplish this goal, and just we wouldn't give up.
This is great advice.
I mean, it's like learning a piece on the piano. It sounds, rickety at first, and then you just keep on practicing it obsessively until it's sounding pretty good. And all of a sudden you're at Carnegie Hall, so.
Right. Practice, practice, practice.
Practice. Louise laughing.
So actually,
We
Terry
actually
had
have played at Carnegie Hall. That's also.
There you go.
So actually, Terry had done an MBA the year prior, and I think it was somewhat in the air. And that evening, it was like, let's really change this. Let's make something out of this. Terry was like really putting it into it.
It was an accelerated MBA kind of program
At Harvard.
Yeah, it was an 8-month program through the HBS exec ed program, and I had gone to Harvard as an undergrad. It was very different going back as so many years later. But I think I was in the mode of, okay, now we came up with this great idea. We see a problem. We think there's a solution. And then we think the total addressable market is enormous. It's the world's women. That's the market for their entire reproductive years. So, and there's never been a successful solution in my mind for what people experience during their cycles, whether it's psychological or physical. And it's actually a wonder to me that in all of human history, there's not been, we've sent people to the moon, multiple times, and we have fridges that talk back to us, and we've created AI, but why not? Why has this problem? Why has this challenge of, and the pain of women's cycles not been addressed yet? It's a mystery.
It is a mystery. All my women friends, we talk about the excruciating pain. We showed up because you have a career, you have responsibility, you show up. I remember being in the OR with water bottles that they would use for the patients. I'd be sitting there in my scrubs. I just think like all the pain that we work through and show up. I also want to touch on getting this to market, how you went about it, the standards that you follow. Because of your backgrounds, your life experience was able to add that, your professional and personal experience. When I was at the Today Show, the mom parent vertical was like on fire because they saw they had solutions to parenting problems, right? And it's like, as women, it was, driving the driving force to a lot of these successful businesses. I think a lot of people will resonate with your backstory. Again, with the spirit of second opinion, if you would both like to share, what is some of the best advice you've ever gotten and some of the worst advice? I can share something if it will help inspire you. What I had once, I sat across a doctor. And again, this is not downing anyone, by the way. This is just a different of mindset, right? My whole life, I've always been tracking food, tracking movement, was always aware of it, always ate really healthy. I did all the right things. And one day I just went to put on a jacket and I'm like, is this the wrong blazer? Like, I couldn't fit in it. I was trying to squeeze into this jacket. And I'm like, no, this is my jacket. Why can't I get it on? It was over the pandemic where we were all basically not in normal clothes for a long time. And I went to my doctor and I got on the scale and I'm like, it's like I just was not myself. I was mushy. I would all these things. I sat across from my doctor virtual because we weren't meeting in person then. This was another doctor and crying like, I need help. Like, there's something, and I was told this was just a part of aging. And I was like, not in my world. I'm going to go. So I thought to myself, this is the wrong person. And so I was like, that's my answer. But I thought, that's not good enough.
It's actually related a little bit to our product. So I've struggled with premenstrual dysphoric disorder for most of my adult life. And the standard treatments for that are, well, doctors will either put you on hormonal birth control or a light antidepressant for the second half of your cycle. But for me, the PMDD, the mood symptoms are really intense over 2 days, and I didn't think that I needed to be on an antidepressant all the time in order to address 2 very difficult days. And also with the hormonal birth control, it just made me feel like very flat. Like it felt like it changed my personality. And I think, in creating this product, we wanted something where people didn't feel like they needed to abandon their personality or have it completely flatlined or erase your cycle, which is what happens it's an artificially induced period, right? As Uli explained earlier with hormonal birth control. And so I think that when we don't see satisfactory solutions or we haven't been given them, it's also an opportunity. Like you said, the mom entrepreneurs of the world, when they notice something while parenting that's missing, it's an opportunity to step up and question that. And whether that's creating a business or just drawing attention to the fact that something's very under-researched. I was really surprised, for instance, when I discovered how under-researched adenomyosis is, when it's very common, but really very, very few randomized controlled trials have ever explored it. And so I think women can do a few things. They can start new businesses. They can demand that there's more research and attention paid. They can post about it in their social media. There's a lot of things that people can do to move the needle in whatever way, they feel empowered to do.
Yeah. So you took your situation and then you created a solution. You weren't given the best solution, so you created your own, and something that you think could help other women.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Good stories. Thank you for sharing. I'm just thinking about mine. There's so many things are coming to mind.
It could be anything, no pressure. I just like asking that. And it's so funny. I interview some really smart people and they'll say, that's the hardest question. We're really good at talking about other things that aren't related to us per se, especially as like academic achieve, you go to school, but it's hard and you're not used to talking about yourself. I know.
That's so true. That's so true. I'm a little bit like a sponge in that regards because whatever I can, I literally soak it up and like try to work it through. I'm thinking like as an example, I had acne as a teenager and like a few pimples and I was like annoyed by it. And I was like, okay, what can I do? And then I came across like a book which was all those like cut out sugar. And I was like, okay, so I will cut out sugar. This is what I did.
Yeah.
And ever since, whatever advice or good suggestion I get, I'm like, and I keep it and store it and try to read up and understand it, implement it or share it with others. It's like somewhere I read wear a sunscreen. I was in my early 20s and it was like not promoted so widely. And then I read, okay, you think sunscreen. So I'm like always check. And if someone tells me something that doesn't make sense, I'm like, thank you very much. And I'm like, under absolute no circumstance.
Yeah.
So I try to always kind of balance it for myself, but it's a very, very good question. I have to be more aware how I react. Thank you. Good question.
You'll think of it at 2 a.m. tonight. Before we start closing it up, is there anything we didn't talk about, a message that you wanted to come with today that we didn't touch upon?
I think it's exciting that a cultural shift is happening when it's coming to women's health, and a cultural shift always precedes institutional shifts. So I encourage women to, read up, do their research, participate in that shift as it's happening. And, periods are not pathological. They're foundational to human life. And I think it's something that should be celebrated.
Beautifully said. Very much agree with that. And women should and absolutely can advocate for themselves. And they might sometimes encounter like a curious or a surprised look, but they should definitely ask, and because it re-educates us as well. As Terry said, they should read up, everybody should read up and learn, but ask your providers, and because you deserve every answer and every knowledge and every aspect we have read or known, and you also teach us.
Thank you. And I want to direct people to your website. And for anybody listening, I'm also going to link it in the show notes. So if you want to head over to their website where there's a lot of information, we did cover a lot today. Is that the best place for listeners to go to learn about your product?
Yes, and also they can check out our Instagram. It's at 2 Moons Health on Instagram.
Wonderful. That's a positive place to leave it, as solid and positive, which is what we like to do on Second Opinion. And I will say personally, it's been very interesting getting to know both of you professionally and a little bit personally through your website and through this interview. So thank you very much for bringing transparency and your wealth of knowledge and your expertise to the conversation. It's very much appreciated. Different backgrounds, different paths, but somehow we're always landing on the same conversation when it comes to women's health. I'm going to bring this up, like I said in the beginning, people can drift in and out of your life. Some of your friends, you go to school, you go to college, you lose touch, but somehow everybody wants to know what they're doing about their hormones as we reach certain points in our life. Everybody wants to touch base to figure out what you're taking, what you're eating, what you're doing, who you're seeing, where you're getting your information from. So thank you so much. And I really enjoyed seeing how both of you have shown up in this space. So thank you. If this chat can hit something, do not keep it to yourself. Send it to someone who would appreciate this kind of information, and follow Second Opinion wherever you listen. And if you want a more grounded way to think about your own healthcare decisions, there's a complimentary guide on my website, rosemarieb.com, where you can explore some ways of how to look for your own healthcare provider. From New York, I'm Rosemarie. Thank you for being here with us. This is Second Opinion, where midlife and age and your cycle is always the advantage. Until next time.